Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is Friday, March 11th. We had a sell-off in the market today. Actually, the market started out pretty good, and then it just kind of NASDAQ dragged everything down, and by the end of the day, everything was red. I want to try to focus today on just the economics. I know that the geopolitical situation is terrible. There's a lot of worry and nervousness and emotion, like intense emotion. And people are angry, and this has the potential to really escalate way higher than where it is right now. And that is scary. That is really scary. I'm not going to get into that today. I want to focus on the economics. Because if you could strip out what is happening geopolitically with this war, and again, this is not a dream. This is not pretend. This is not a war game. This is reality. People are getting killed. You have two nuclear superpowers facing off against each other. I don't even want to imagine, where this can go to, because at the end of the day, if we're talking about this thing going to the extremes that it can possibly reach, we're all gone. Let's focus on the economics right now. I'm just going to separate out. Let's pretend, and again, we can't pretend it's real, but I'm just saying I want to talk about the economics. Because for me, when you strip away the emotion and the fear and the worry and, can this thing escalate? The economics are pretty damn good. Right now we're looking at a fiscal situation of about a 675 billion month for March. You got to go all the way back to last April, May to see that kind of fiscal flow. 600, and we had a 609 billion in February. February was a little bit of a short month, right? Only had 28 days. We're trending 675 billion for March. Very strong. But I got to tell you something. I just checked the banking numbers. What was that? For the week ending, was it March 2nd or something like that? I believe, yeah. The banking numbers were unbelievable. Loans and leases up 55.7 billion. That was the biggest increase in 23 months. 55.7 billion. Commercial and industrial loans, I think they were up something like 33.2 billion or something like that. That was also the biggest increase in 23 months. I suspect that maybe some of those commercial and industrial loans, that's flowing to the energy sector with the rise in oil and petroleum prices. 33.3 billion on commercial and industrial loans. Credit card loans and revolving credit up another 4 billion. Bank assets up 178 billion. These are unbelievable numbers. We're talking about 1 week. Banks, if we get through this thing, and we will, hopefully, fingers crossed, if we get through this thing without a nuclear war, I just say banks are the most undervalued sector in the market right now. Unbelievably undervalued. 178 billion of new assets in 1 week. And a big chunk of that was loans, 55.7 billion. A little less than half of that were loans. That's future earnings for the banks. It's big. It's huge. It also says something about the economy. Credit demand is extremely strong. You don't have strong credit demand when the economy is weak. Credit demand comes from, people having the wherewithal to take on more credit. They see opportunity. They have the income to support higher credit, levels. So I just think this is very, very strong. But again, you can't erase the fact that there's a war going on, and that war is extremely dangerous. What bothers me right now is The other day I spoke about, and this has been all over the news, that they found biolabs, the Russians found biolabs in Ukraine. When Victoria Nuland was questioned about that in Congress, she said, yeah, there's biolabs, and we're afraid that the Russians were going to get their hands on them. And now what has been happening is a whole spin campaign has been going on from the White House and the State Department saying the Russians are going to use, those are not our biolabs. And, all we were doing was, we were involved at the level of just providing like security for those things and making sure, they crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's. Yeah, if you believe that, I got a bridge I can sell you. I mean, if you believe the lies coming out of the government at this point, I mean, you've been so propagandized, you don't know, which way is up and down, basically. I mean, how many times do we have to hear these lies about WMDs in Iraq, about, Syria, Assad gassing his people, about Libya, all this stuff? So the whole narrative is spinning, and now what is happening is that they're setting up a narrative to say that, hey, the Russians are going to use those biolabs to create a false flag biochemical attack. And they're using that, obviously, as a pretext for NATO to get involved. They want, you could see where this is going. And I see people all over Twitter and everywhere else saying, we got to get one. What's the use of having NATO when we allow something like this to go on? And we have this great alliance for good and for democracy and for peace, and we don't use it. For good, for democracy, for peace? Ask the 1 million people in Iraq who died. Oh, that's right, you can't ask them because they're dead. On false pretenses that we went in there. Or in Syria, or in Libya. So, I think this is where it's going, folks, and this is why it's very, very dangerous. Because as soon as NATO gets involved, it's a whole other ball game. And it ratchets up. It goes up exponentially. It's Friday, folks. What do you want me to do? It ratchets up exponentially. Very dangerous. I'm trying not to think about this. I want to, kind of keep that on the side, and I'm talking about the economics. What I see, very strong fiscal, very strong bank credit, loans and leases blowing through the roof, commercial and industrial loans up the biggest in 23 months. I mean, this does not reflect, or this does not indicate a weak economy. Now, next week, they're saying that Russia can default on some of its debts. Not Russia, the country, official debts. As far as I know, Russia is not running any official debts in foreign currency. This would be Russian firms and commercial entities that are on the hook in foreign currencies. Euro, maybe some dollar. These would put Western banks at risk. Now, I just went through a whole thing about the banks. Banks are well capitalized. They might have to take some write-downs on this, but I think their stock, a lot of the bank stocks now, really reflect the worst case scenario of defaults. And they're piling on, at least the U.S. banks, U.S. commercial banks are piling on assets. $178 billion in 1 week. I mean, that is huge. It is huge. So that's where we stand right now. I got to stick with the economic fundamentals, although, of course, like everybody else, how can you not be paying attention to what's going on over there in Ukraine? Very serious situation. And I really hope it doesn't come to the point where NATO gets involved, because then we're talking about a whole different thing. And the level of danger in that case will have gone up exponentially. And let's just hope and pray it doesn't come to that. But, once the public embraces an idea or a position and it gets repeated over and over and over again, the likely path of that is to flow right up to policy and to get a reaction from policy. So it's very bad, very bad. Anyway, let's enjoy Friday. We'll keep monitoring events, and let's keep our fingers crossed. Have a good one, everybody. Bye.